Hello, I'm already screen sharing. Um, yes, and I have a sip of coffee right here. The plan, so I'm building out for the inspirational pocketbook, which I don't even know if it's going to be a real thing yet, but I've been kind of working on it. And kind of what I want it to be is like what I picture a fake object that I'm not sure actually exists, but in like a writer's room on a TV show where they would have like a Bible of genre tropes. And then that's kind of like tropes being the a little different than cliches. But you could write down cliches too. That's actually useful because you'd kind of want to avoid them. And cliches, like if I feel like if tropes get overused, maybe they become cliches or whatever. But tropes are more like useful, totally useful, like things that you can use in your story to achieve like what you want to achieve. And I have my project Percival, which is modeled slightly after this episodic kind of style storytelling TV style from the 90s. And even beyond that, it's like loosely inspired by Hercules. And I've been watching some Hercules, and it kind of holds up. Like as far as the special effects are bad, but it's a fun show, and it's funny. Like it doesn't bite off more than it can chew. Like I feel like Star Trek does that a little bit. Like Star Trek, there will be like legit masterpiece episodes in the original series, and then there'll be ones that are just okay, and then there'll be ones that are bad. And Hercules is a little bit more like every episode is like okay to pretty good, because there's not a crazy amount you can do in 40 minutes, but they try to hit a little emotional beat every episode, and that's something I wrote down that I want to try and do with my Percival story. So if we go over these episodes, we'll think about that too, about what are the emotional beats that they're hitting. Dele says, "Should I tweet this out?" I don't even know, Dale. This nobody wants to see this except you and me and like a handful of other people. This is more like I would be doing this anyway, and I've kind of been doing some of them publicly, and we're building out the story tropes for the inspirational pocketbook, which that is very unorganized at this point. It's just a Google Doc. I have it here. We'll look at that for just a second too. But I wanted to give a quick little like shout out to a random movie I saw, and it's called Fair Game from 1995, starring William Baldwin and Cindy Crawford. You guys heard of that movie? Nasser, what's up, dude? Nasser, he says, I'm laying in bed sick, but I think I'll be better soon. Nasser, I want to talk. I don't have to talk about Fair Game right now, but I was going to talk about it just a little bit. And then we can talk about it more, or we'll talk about a different movie. But I saw it and I've been kind of wanting to talk about it. Because, so I had this like thesis, and I'll tell you guys, it's not exactly like proven correct. But my thesis was that bad movies from the 90s are still better than good movies today. And so I've been watching some 90s movies that get bad reviews. I watched two so far. So one was Metro starring Eddie Murphy, and it was terrible. I actually still have to watch the very end, the last 20 minutes. And I watched it in like three sittings, but it was bad. It was so bad it kind of makes you not like Eddie Murphy, which is super kind of rare or whatever. I was wondering even about that. And but we don't need to get into that too much. That's like kind of a separate thing. But then I watched Fair Game. Both Metro and Fair Game, they're like 15% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think supposedly audience too, it's low. I want to check the app. What's the Nasser? You might know what's the app for like Film Bros or whatever. Where I forget what it's called, but that could be useful because I got a feeling Fair Game is like borderline cult classic style. Like it must have some supporters. But Fair Game was like it was so a lot of the reviews say it's like stupid, I guess. But and then in Metro they say it's cliches, that it's true. At any point in Metro, you're like, I've seen this exact scene before 100 times, and the 100 other times are better than this. This is like the worst version of the 100 times I've seen this scene, of like a cop, his partner dies, whatever. Like that's one Dale, a Fair Game with Sean Penn. No, the one I'm talking about is, I guess there's like 3 or 4 movies called Fair Game, but it's starring William Baldwin and Cindy Crawford, and it has kind of a famous VHS cover. Some of these movies I've been revisiting just because I remember seeing the VHS from childhood, and these are movies I never saw but kind of wanted to rent, but they're rated R, so I couldn't rent them when I was a kid. And so that's been a little phase because I've been in a little bit of a phase where I'm like, I was almost like I've seen like too many movies. It's hard to find movies to watch now. And then I can dig for like super artsy fartsy or foreign, but and maybe that's kind of what I need to do. But even foreign sometimes you can't like multitask at all, and sometimes I'll have to multitask a little bit. Although even though with movies they do deserve your full attention, but with foreign, you really have to just sit down and read the subtitles and stuff. But I was at one time I was going through like on Tubi or something, and I was like, "This is utterly ridiculous. I've seen every single movie," and I go right, just pushing the button. I'm like, "I've seen all these movies. This is terrible. I've literally watched every movie. What am I going to do? I guess I'm going to quit watching movies. I'm going to like move on to something else. Maybe some TV or just give it all up. I don't know, pick up a new hobby, like reading books, like a better hobby." But then I realized I was in the Watch It Again tab. So it was just recommending movies I'd already seen. So that was actually a little bit of a false alarm. But Nasser, Letterboxd. Yeah, so I wonder what Letterboxd says about Fair Game. But Fair Game, if you kind of do that cliche test where you're like, have I seen this before? The answer is like a lot of times it's no. Maybe a few times it's yes. But I feel like almost the whole time it's no. And it's like, yeah, maybe you'd say it's stupid, but it's also like awesome and it's fun to watch something and that you've never seen before. Even in like maybe the fact that it is stupid means it was never repeated and then it was never done in the past, so it's truly original. And I'll like I don't know. I almost don't want to give an example, but it is like and another thing, they said that a bunch of the reviews say they hate Cindy Crawford and that she's a terrible actress. And I was like, this is like early version of like incel rage or whatever, because she's fine. She's fine in it. She's like borderline good, and she's obviously like super hot. So it's kind of a fun movie for that reason. That's like a subgenre itself of like the vehicle for like the supermodel or whatever. And yeah, that one I think it was the only movie she ever did. So they say that too. Like her acting was so bad it destroyed her career. And I'm like, you guys need to get out of the house or whatever, because that's not a reason to hate the movie. Like it's honestly her acting is like I like it made me think about acting like I don't know if I'm like over defending, but it's like Arnold. Like if you dismissed every Arnold movie because he's a quote unquote bad actor, that would be so stupid. Like acting is in some ways it's like less important than we think. Like what is really good acting? If you think of good acting, sometimes that's like annoying actors who sniff their own farts, like Sean Penn or whatever. That's like good acting. And like people just reading their lines in a semi-competent way, I love that. Like that's way better than good acting. Billy Basco, what's up? I sent you a DM short list of trope titles. Oh, just now? Because I haven't seen one for a while, a DM from you, but let me see. Okay, yeah. The title trope short list. Never mix A and B. I'll just read it, and this can kind of warm us all up, but it says list A, age, gods, lords, shadow, rise, fall, curse, chronicle, guardians. List B, darkness, light, war, chaos, fallen, infinity, ancients. Yeah, I could see some of that, and yeah, mixing them. Never mix A and B. Yeah, that is like useful. Some of these I would almost say are getting like tiptoeing into cliche, but that's where it's such a gray line. I can't figure out what. So Dan Plagle, what's up, man? I should probably watch Fair Game again. I never seen it in the theaters and thinking it wasn't very good. Oh, you remember seeing it. Yeah, I wonder this, well, this kind of goes with my thesis is that if it's like surrounded by 90s and movies in 1995, like movies were pretty great around that time. Like if you compare it to like Pulp Fiction, like 1994 is Pulp Fiction and then you watch Fair Game, you know, you're going to kind of hate Fair Game. So that's part of the issue is if you're just like comparing it to like The Matrix or something, both produced by Joel Silver, produced Fair Game and The Matrix. Like, Matrix 1997, that's one of the best movies of all time. Fair Game is not one of the best movies of all time. All it is like, I don't know, like, it's like a movie that isn't boring. It's, yeah. But somehow it's better than that. But that's the problem with like movies today is like they're boring and hard to finish, even a lot of them. But not to talk like broadly about. But that is like. But so my thesis has not really been proven right because I watched two terrible movies from the '90s. One I really liked and one I really didn't like. So it's not like every single bad movie from the '90s is great and we all just whatever. Nasser says, watch Jade. That sounds like that rings a bell and might be one of those VHS covers I want to watch, and it might be in that same realm as Fair Game. Dele, never seen. Well, Fair Game's on Tubi, you guys, and I wonder if it's like in a way it's. I don't know if you'd say it's ahead of its time. That's like maybe not true, or like I wonder if you could almost put it in a category of like the kind of '80s low budget movies that are so bad they're good, like which I haven't seen too many of those actually, but like isn't there one called like Hard Ticket to Hawaii? There's one called like Miami Ninjas or something like that. Surf Miami, Surf Ninjas Must Die. Those kind of movies. It's like Fair Game is like almost in that realm. Um, but good chemistry in Fair Game too, which is speaking of acting, it's like if the chemistry between it's kind of a steamy action movie, like that's a '90s subgenre, and the chemistry between the lead actor and actress is good. It's like the acting doesn't is totally secondary to that. I watched this Russian movie called Iron Mask, starring Schwarzenegger and Jackie Chan. It was batshit crazy, bad movie, but so much fun. Wait, like actual Schwarzenegger and Jackie Chan were in the same movie once? And is it like an old movie? I wonder if that's a uh like a new timeline we entered and that movie came into existence because I don't remember that movie existing. He says yes. Well, that's cool. I want to check it out. Yeah, bad movie but so much fun. That's like they're so bad it's good. That's probably similar to so bad but so much fun. But there's another one where if you say like it's stupid but not in a way that like ruins it and it actually makes it more original how stupid it is. Like one example in Fair Game is Cindy Crawford. I think it's the second time there's like Russian KGB kind of people. The second time they try to assassinate her, they blow up her house, but she's on the balcony, so she gets thrown into the river. And then the guy who detonated the bomb noticed that she didn't die, so he starts spraying Uzi bullets into the river. And then William Baldwin, who happens to be there, but it isn't terrible. It is sort of plot convenient, but it's not in a way that is so bad that you have to stop the movie. It's more in a way that you kind of chuckle, like whatever. But like they do actually like set it up and justify why he's there, even though yeah, whatever. But so he sees the guy spraying bullets, so he dives into the river and does like a Matrix side dive, blam 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 blam, blasting the guy as he falls into the river, misses every shot, and then the guy kind of see like a bunch of people are around now, so the guy kind of runs off, and then he saves Cindy Crawford or whatever. But it's just funny, like if that's your reaction to like save a girl in the river who's getting shot by a machine gun. It's not like run over to the guy and shoot him or whatever. It's just to jump into the river while going blah, 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 and miss every shot. Quentin's dad and Al Pacino's dad made some direct-to-video movies. Oh yeah, I remember hearing that. Yeah, yeah. I bet those are crappy. Okay. So this I'm trying to keep the stream maybe an hour, I don't know. Um but so here's the file for inspirational pocketbook, some random crap writing down, tropes versus cliches. So I had written some, so like this might be a trope, like the person nobody believes in proves himself. Yes, that's something. I remember one I wrote down should transfer because I'll write them in my notebook if I'm watching TV, and then I got to transfer them. I forgot, but I remember one I wrote was like, it's this. It's nobody believes in the, what do I say? Nobody is. Maybe you could just say nobody. Yeah, maybe nobody believes in you, but I do. That's definitely kind of like a character dynamic trope that one of the things of why this is like the inspirational pocketbook is everything written, hopefully it will hold other things within it that you could build like almost a whole episode around, or if it's a b plot or whatever. But like if you have this dynamic between characters, you have someone helping someone. A lot of times the person who's being helped, they kind of want to know why the person even is helping them, and if what their motivation is. And a lot of times it will be the person who is helping has their own kind of shady past that they want personal redemption for in their own eyes, so they're kind of helping someone else to try and get through it. And they might not want to say that because they might be like even ashamed of their past or whatever, so they kind of just want the other person to leave them alone and let them help them. The person might not want help if it's shady like that. So I just described that. I feel like you could picture that, like that's been done, I think. Like, but if you do it, it doesn't really feel like a cliche. It would become your own thing because you put your own characters in there and stuff. Whereas maybe cliches are like they're a little more specific to where, yeah, if you plug your characters in, it's still like exactly the same or been done a million times or whatever. Like one that might be considered a cliche is the cops have partners and the partner dies and the other cop like wants revenge because his partner died. And that even that like if you do it, you could probably do it good, like just do a good version of it and then people will forgive it. But if you do like a super basic thing everyone's seen a million times, people will definitely tune out. So let's see what we wrote. First 5 minutes, that was a weird thing. This some of this might get deleted. It's not really good. It's not even a book now. It's just like notes. But that was the data. It came up with an interview that from Miller Time on Mark Miller's channel. He was interviewing the Green Lantern writer guy who came from Hollywood. I forget his name right now, but he's a good writer. But they were both talking about the first 5 minutes of a movie being really important. And apparently in Netflix, like that's like an executive note or whatever. So the first 5 minutes are super important. I wonder if that changed, if that's gone up or down. Like it almost feels like today, people's attention spans. I don't know what people do if they give movies a chance, and I'll sometimes do it like 1 minute, or I'll know too if it's. There will be movies that will win me over in like 30 seconds or from like the credits from like the font that they choose. If they choose like a good font, then I'll trust it. But a lot of times if it has that you can tell it's shot on film because the font will be, and they shoot it, if they shoot the font in camera, they call it, then the font will actually have the gyration from the film running through the camera. So there's a slight vibration to the letters on the black screen. That if I see that, I'll usually always watch the movie because then that's like older movies or whatever. Like it might have stopped in like whatever 2000s or something, but 90s and 80s movies kind of all have that. And yeah, there is this question of like kind of still wanting to get back to like there's good movies out there, but if you think about, and I don't know if we're nostalgia or whatever, but that's like if I'm looking for something to watch, a lot of times I'll filter it by the year, like just try just older decades. Dan Pelego says used to be the first 10 minutes back when I was doing film pitches. Yeah, that's interesting. Totally. Nasser. Honestly, I like cliches and tropes. I think they work. I think it only fails when the overarching story fails. You can have a wholly original story that's riddled with tropes and cliches. Yeah, I think I agree with that. And like Fair Game is like, I'm trying to think where that fits in. Like Fair Game, I'll give you one more example from Fair Game. In Fair Game, after a huge action scene, kind of like almost maybe midway through the movie, uh, William Baldwin kind of saves Cindy Crawford. She's starting to become a little sort of action hero in that scene because she's kind of mostly getting protected by him, but in that scene she's kind of badass. And then she kind of storms off, and he's like, "Where are you going?" She's like, "I'm getting away from everything. I'm getting away from all this. I'm getting away from you. Uh, I'm the one who's causing this. I need to like be alone." And he's like, "No, we're in this together." Blah blah blah. And then she ends up like running away from him, and some more stuff happens, but this is like the little moment of her character kind of questioning things or whatever. He ends up handcuffing them together, and he's like, I lost the keys, so we can't. But then it cuts because they like cut a scene or something. But then it cuts to him holding the cuffs over a rock, shooting it with a gun, and they explode. So then they're separated. So they're only connected with cuffs for like literally 10 seconds from the end of one shot to the beginning of the next, or like 5 seconds even. And that's a trope, getting connected with cuffs. That's been, or yeah, it's like trope version, borderline cliche. It's kind of fun, but yeah. And even when it happened, I was like, I've seen this before. They're connected with cuffs. Come on. But then it's like, nope, not boom. Psh, we're separated. Like, so they kind of fake out the cliche almost. Like, we're not doing that cliche. And then she starts running again, and he's like, where are you going? She's running, and then she randomly jumps a train. So now she's on a train, and it's not like super random, but it's definitely kind of random. But it's definitely like you could never predict that that she's running from this guy that's they're like friends, or they have some romantic tension and they're on the same side, but she's just having her moment of doubt or whatever, and she runs from him, and then she hops a train. And then so then he grabs the car and he starts driving alongside the train, and he's like, "I'm not letting you go," or whatever. She's like, "Let me go." He's like, "I'm not letting you go." And then there's like these huge pillars of wood, whatever, like poles that along the side of the train, and he's almost hitting those, but he's kind of dodging him, and he puts the car in cruise control, and you kind of know what he's sort of trying to do is like you're like, wait a minute, is he just gonna jump from his car into the train? So then, and there's no bad guys around, so this is just them sort of having a little lovers spat moment of doubt. They haven't kissed yet, but they've had some romantic tension, and this is like structurally, it's like the tension before they kind of give into their feelings or whatever. But it's playing out as like him driving along a train going 80 miles an hour in this convertible, and she's in the train car yelling at him like, "Let me go." He's like, "I'm not gonna let you go." And then she's like, "Look out, you're gonna die." And then like a giant one of the poles smashes into his car, but he dives at the last second and his car explodes, and the explosion propels him like into the train car with her, and she kind of catches him. So then he's in the train car with her, and then they like start kissing. And yeah, so it's like that is amazing. I just feel like that is like the best thing I've seen in a movie in a while. It's so funny that it's a huge action scene that has no bad guys in it, and it's just they accidentally created a huge action scene because they're both kind of stupid or whatever. Alex, what's up? I feel like the Coen brothers did the cuffed together trope at some point. Is it maybe it's yeah, what? The one no frick, what's it called? The George Clooney one where they are all they're all wearing they all escape from prison or whatever. Comics legend. Perry, do you ever go back and adjust the story and script once you start thumbnailing the layouts and you get new ideas, or do you stick to the script? Um, no, but I'll tweak dialogue up all the way up until the very end with the lettering phase and stuff. But usually the I'm pretty happy with everything, and yeah, like I don't know, new it kind of feels done when it's done, so then I don't have that issue, I guess. Easter punk, all tech is in pastels, nothing but sunny disposition with a punk edge. Is that like a trope? King Camel. They did the cup together trope in Hannibal, but they did a good job of subverting expectations by having Hannibal cut his own hand off instead of Clarice's. Oh yeah, I like that. But that is anytime yeah, it's like if you step into that kind of trope cliche thing, the audiences can get like on edge. They're like, I might hate this. I've seen this before. But then if you yeah you then maybe it's a good time to subvert expectations because people debate that whether that's good or not. But um, yeah, feels like in general it's good to subvert expectations, even though I know it's common to say that's bad. But I don't know. I don't know. Um, turns into a clip show. Cool. Okay, so 14 people watching. How's it going, everyone? We're checking out the inspirational pocketbook. Just a little bit of if we got some of these. Um, yeah, this came from a creative block. We were talking about you can kind of put punk behind stuff, and it sort of creates a look. That's like a visual look. So that's kind of a separate thing sometimes. But um, some good movies. Yeah, this is all like visual motifs we're kind of talking. And this came up with creative block. Like if you say apocalyptic, often you think deserts, but you can do overgrowth apocalyptic. That's like The Last of Us 2 or whatever, or maybe Last of Us 1 even. I think we're still in just like aesthetics, visual motifs. So there might be, and the idea of the inspirational pocketbook is it's like only words. It's like lists like this. So like you just look at and you see if any of these, you know, whatever. School for Wizards, Making Gun School, Bullet Wizard School, Factory Core, Industrial Aesthetic, Automated, Assassination Core, Medical, Sterile Aesthetic, The Trope du Jour. This might have been a tweet that I just copy pasted. The pass off, when a savior saves a child / animal, but they are a saver, not a razor, so they have to pass it off and say goodbye and move on. Always strong emotions. That's like Shane, the most famous one, but that comes up a lot. Yeah, so you if you read this, then you know it. I guess if you're looking for a story, you're like writing your story. If you're trying to fit something in that doesn't fit, that could be trouble. But then if you're building it like a TV show, like 8 episodes, there's like a lot more. Each episode you can kind of fit in these kind of things you could build. Like this kind of you could build a whole episode around this idea, which would kind of be the Shane plot maybe. It's like yeah, or and the traveling hero, like it could be a Hercules legendary journeys thing. Like Hercules meets a kid in need, saves him, but then that's not even like the biggest issue. The biggest issue is that now he has this kid on his hands and he can't keep the kid forever. So he has to figure out something else to do. And the kid is getting attached and would get heartbroken. So then you hit that emotional beat. So yeah, any of these tropes that build, that's one way I might try and define it is like a trope in the positive sense. It holds other aspects that you can build off of. It holds other like beats that it will include and other like contexts. and cliches are just one thing. Like they're more zoomed in, but more, yeah. Like they don't necessarily give you a full like beat that you can build a episode around or plug into your story, a big plot of your story. Marvel used the cuff together trope for a supervillain duel called Hammer and Anvil. Hey, student of God, what's up? Your name is just ha 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 ha. Yeah, yeah. You guys remember the movie Fled? That's another like '90s VHS tape thing. I haven't seen it. I forget the actors in that too. Uh, if one of them is a Baldwin, I've been thinking that like if part of my investigation of the '90s is just uh, watching Baldwin movies. So like William Baldwin is Fair Game. You know, there's Stephen Baldwin. There's Alec Baldwin. How many? I feel like maybe there's one more Baldwin in there. And yeah, they like if you watch some of these movies, like they're big budget for the time and like well written. That's like I feel for what they are. Like I kind of feel like Van Damme movies might be like that. Like there's a Van Damme movie called Hard Target. I haven't seen. I think I might watch that next. I'll report back on some Van Damme movies if they're like actually good. Because actually that's one thing I remember is Universal Soldier. I'm pretty sure I remember. So I remember that being mind-blowingly good, and I haven't rewatched it. Only seen it once in my life. I was like 10 years old. I remember thinking it was mind-blowingly good, and I bet you it's still good. I bet you it would hold up. But I was wondering, like, what's the modern equivalent of like Universal Soldier? There kind of isn't one. You have to go apples to oranges. But like a kid who's not supposed to watch R movies stumbles on an R-rated movie, and it's just a mind-blowing action movie that hits emotional beats, and it's just super fun, sci-fi, whatever. That's like Universal Soldier, and like today, I was like, what is? I was trying to be fair even and not like strawman it. And I was like, there's a Sean Penn movie called like The Gunman, and I'm like, okay, like if a 10-year-old kid watched The Gunman today, I bet you they would hate it, and they wouldn't like movies. They wouldn't breed a life of loving movies. Whereas movies are magical to kids who, when they're 10, they see Universal Soldier. Um, Henry Bemis says Hard Target is where he had a mullet. Hard Target is excellent. Cool. I'm looking forward to it then. Yeah, I'm glad I might be tapping into another like little pocket of movies because that's what I've been having trouble. Actually, I think last night even because I didn't pull the trigger on Hard Target, I should have, but or like a Baldwin movie, even though I think about him. But I actually perused looking for what to watch for 2 hours, which actually got me kind of depressed. I feel like I wasted my evening. Um, I am still bummed about that now that I say it. So yeah, it's good to have like doing a little research, a little work to know that if it's a night where you want to watch a movie, maybe do some sketching or doodling while I'm watching. Um, I like having something queued up that I'm looking forward to checking out. But I blew through uh, a ton of those. Like I had some of those, I just watched them all. And yeah, the latest one was Fair Game though, which was last week. So as early as last week, I kind of randomly watched a movie for borderline research purposes, you might call it, and it was great. Um, Campbell says, I like sudden death. Yeah, yeah, that's a hockey one, I think. I might have seen it, but so long ago. Uh, Nasser says, I love when they say the name of the movie in the movie. Yeah. I wonder if that comes up in any of these we're talking about. Bemis says, Stephen Baldwin, Lawrence Fishburne. I think you're right. That's why I was like, I think it's a Baldwin in Fled. So Fled's going on the list. I got to watch Fled. Every Baldwin. You know a good one with as a Baldwin in it? John Carpenter's Vampires. I think that has the fourth Baldwin that I'm thinking of. He's the most portly of all the Baldwins. They all got a little more portly as time went on, but am I right in thinking you try to downplay emotional moments in your stories, Narwhal? I remember you talking about Earthbound, how these characters were slaves essentially, but you didn't dwell on it. Yeah, that's sort of true, but it's more like that's, I feel like that's like my weakness. But it's not like I'm bad at it. It's like I got to focus on it. And I haven't been. And if I do focus on it, I can do it well. But so I've been thinking about that because it's weird. It's something I don't particularly like love. Like we talk about this on Creative Block, like of like warm versus cool movies. Like Kubrick is all cool or like cold even. So all Kubrick's movies are cold, and even like something like Barry Lyndon, there's a part where his son dies, and he's devastated. It's kind of handled in like a cold way, and it's still like emotional, but it's handled in a cold way. Versus Spielberg, all his stuff is like really warm, and those are the kind of borderline tear jerkers. Uh, and like I feel like Christopher Nolan's movies are often pretty cold. I think he kind of has to lean into kind of he has to like force himself, and then he will get some okay emotion stuff in there. But he leans cold. Uh, Tarantino borderline leans cold. Like all my favorite filmmakers are cold. So that's kind of where I was coming from. But like we're if we're talking about TV, like TV like has to have like this warm aspect to it. Even like I think like X Files, like an episode has to have kind of an emotional purpose, a, a little beat to give like some satisfaction to the audience. Um, and if it pulls that off, then it feels really nice. And movies, I mean, are like that too, but it's not always like American Psycho. Like there's nothing like warm in that movie really. Uh, but yeah, the fact I like the fact you leave it to the reader to intuit that. Yeah, that's like where I was kind of started, and I like both ways, but I've been wanting to do the emotional stuff. At least with the Percival stuff, it's like they're episodes, and I'm like every episode needs to have like kind of the way the TV might do it is you have your character of the week, so not a main character. They're only going to be like the main character or the secondary main character for this episode, and they get a huge arc. And Percival might not get the huge arc. He kind of helps them get their arc. And that's like how Hercules works or something like that. And some episodes will do it better than others. But that's kind of like the episodes that do it best, those become like your favorite episodes, the ones you remember the most or whatever. Vampires has the chunky Baldwin. Adam Baldwin. Okay, so there's William, Stephen, Adam. Wait, which one's is Adam the main one? Who's the most famous one who accidentally shot a guy? Is that Adam Baldwin? I'm getting them all mixed up now. Bruce Baldwin. Um, a game of chicken. That's psychological double negative. I like that. That would take some explanation or examples. We were talking about that at a creative block, but that is like the game of chicken, and it is like the scene kind of spoofs it, but the scene in the Princess Bride where he's like, I'm Sicilian, and that means you poisoned the right one. But you know that I know that, so that means you poisoned the left. Unless you think that I would have already thought of that in case you poisoned the right one. Like that kind of thing is funny. But that psychological double negative is like people thinking kind of in like a percentage, like it's like every thought is actually two thoughts, and it's a percentage. So if you're like, I feel like a cheeseburger, what you're actually thinking is like, I feel 90% like a cheeseburger, 10% like doing nothing or something like that. And you don't say the 10% because why would you? But then there are times when it does come up where you start talking about these like hidden percentages in like the ways our thoughts come. Adam Baldwin isn't a Baldwin. Oh, you're blowing my mind. Completely unrelated Baldwin. What? Well, I need a list of all Baldwins. Okay, there's Alec is the main, and Adam, because Adam looked like a Baldwin to me. Maybe he's a cousin, but I think oh, there's a Billy, and then there's the counterfeit Baldwin. I think is the one in Vampires, I guess, but he looks like a Baldwin, so I don't know. That was Manny says that was Alec. No, I don't think it was Alec. Alec, because Alec's the main one. He was in big budget movies like all the way through the '90s. Kind of, he was the biggest of all the brothers stars. Uh, Checklist was a basic, whatever. See, this is too much writing, so I might cut this or like move it to another document or whatever. Out of focus, chaos to focus, unfolding moments. This changes everything. Two story. Subplots play off each other. Ticking clock. Dun dun dun. Oh, this is getting into some actual tropes. Wait, sense of building. Set the board. Only exit cut off. I put that as, this is called the checklist. So like, yeah, if you do the only exit cut off, Hercules will do that. Like, if he's in a cave and then the cave door caves in. And then they cut to commercial or whatever, you know? Like, that's always awesome. That's like the audience being like, well, I don't know how the heck they're going to get out of this one, but I guess you got to stick around and find out. Task at hand. This chess quote. Whoever sees no other aim in the game than that of giving checkmate to one's opponent will never become a good chess player. If you apply that to storytelling, if you call that like tunnel vision towards the end, yeah, like whatever, just enjoying the journey, enjoying the little moments that come up in the story. Or even thinking, if you think of story too much as like this and then this and then this and then this, A to B, A to B, A to B, A to B to C to D to E to F to G or whatever, that could be trouble. Everything that happens in movies that is good happens by accident. Blah, blah, blah. Kick the can down the road. No explanation, but I have an example. A young woman goes to her father's house. They haven't spoken in years. If you're writing, you can have her knock and he answers the door. They stare at each other, then hug, then talk emotionally. Or you can kick the can down the road. She knocks, he isn't home. She checks the door, it's open. She decides to wait for him in his own house. Oh, yeah, that is a writing hack. The second one kind of sounds better. You build up that moment a little more, and then things can happen while she's looking around the house. I was thinking there could be even other ways you could do it. A possible other thing is like he is home, but neither of them is ready to talk for reals, to confront, so they're being fake to each other. And the audience might expect like a big dramatic moment, but then the fact that they're just being fake to each other. They don't get that big moment yet, so you know it's still coming. That is another. You could do both. You could have he's not there, so she walks in, waits, then he does come home, then they have this kind of awkward moment of them both faking. They don't get their big emotional thing. Oh, here's the kind of double negative thing. I'm of two minds about it. Very rarely does an opinion lean fully one way or the other, and people will be more or less willing to fake a strong opinion to influence others. Overacting. Anecdote. I went to Florida and met people, and it seemed like everyone was overacting. Are they faking it? No. I just had an insular worldview and was being expanded. So don't be afraid to write ridiculous characters. Crazy people are out there, and there's always someone crazier than even the craziest character you can write. Maybe that's true. I don't know. Maybe I'll delete that. Maybe not. I can't decide. I'm of two minds. Scenario versus story. In the old days with movies, they called them moving pictures, which got shortened to just pictures. Think about that for a second because that is awesome. The aspect that was most identifiable to become the reason to name something was that it was a picture that moved. It's so simple. They didn't have a word for script, and they didn't even use the word story. Instead, they used the word scenario. Even if it was an epic story, they would write it as a scenario by, or credit it as a scenario by. Scenario is using the word scene in there. Moving pictures, scene, scenario. The simple approach can be very freeing. What's the scenario? What is a high concept? High concepts can be a little cheesy and usually involve some irony that can be expressed as a handicap and creates the scenario. A gunman who has to fight the bad guys, but he lost his spectacles. Yeah, I could say, but he has a prescription. He's legally blind and has a prescription. He lost his spectacles. Snuggie, what's up, man? Let me scroll up and catch up here real fast. What are you doing with the list just for fun? I'm going to publish it, if I find a way to format it where it kind of works. I want to turn it into this little book, call it the Inspirational Pocket Book. Daniel is the fat bald one. Dale got it. Oh, so there are 4 bald ones. Yeah. Also, I agree with Alex. It'd be funny to see a Being John Malkovich scenario, but it's all just different Baldwin clones. That is funny. That's awesome. What if the Baldwins are not brothers, but they're, like failed clones, failed attempts to make the perfect Baldwin? They never quite got there. A fun trope. Everything is going to be just fine. The situation immediately gets bad. Yeah. I've seen a version of that was a good one, and it was, what's the Cartoon Network show about the caveman that Gendy Tartakovsky does? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? It's called like Primal, I think. But there's an episode where he like goes on vacation and he's like he finds like a swimming hole. So he's just enjoying himself in the sun and swimming. And I think they do it for kind of a long time. And you just know something bad's going to happen. So, but they don't do anything. All they do is have him swim and be happy a little bit longer than would be natural for that kind of story. And you just immediately start feeling super uncomfortable. They don't like change the music or anything. It's awesome. That's me playing with audience expectations, kind of. It's a little postmodern, but it's awesome. Tarantino does that with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with the Brad Pitt thing when he goes into Spawn Ranch. Because he walks in there. We know they're all like serial killers or whatever. He doesn't know that. So the whole scene is like super tense. But he doesn't need to do anything. He doesn't even need to set them up as like killers because they aren't in the movie. We just know because of the history. So it's weird. It's like the setup is actually not even in the movie for a lot of that stuff. King Camel. I heard an interesting thought that all stories are a series of coincidences. What do you think? Maybe. Yeah, I guess I'd want to. I gotta look at a story and think what fits or like examples. My first thought is I almost don't like it because I don't like uh, stuff that's no. What the one stuff I really don't like is it's not coincidence. Coincidence could be okay, I guess. I forget what the word is that I hate. If it's what's the word if it's something that happens that's kind of like helping the story or whatever. It's that was convenience. Convenience is what I hate. Coincidence I don't hate. Coincidence can be cool. I have a strawberry. I have to munch on this for a second. Would you say Death Note constitutes a psychological double negative? A lot of that story was L pretending what Kira was going to do, which was then predicted by Kira, which was then predicted by L. Totally, that would be exactly what it is. That's awesome. And that's a lot of fun. And that comes up more than you'd think, because it sounds crazy, and it gets spoofed in Princess Bride, but it comes up kind of a lot. I like that scene in Big Trouble in Little China where try to sneak out of Lopan's hideout and opens the door. A group of warriors are revealed. Door shuts. Like they don't have to fight him. They just like, oh shit, close it. People saying hi. Nasser, I love the trope when a family moves into a new house and they're acting like it's the first time they've ever seen it. Then the kid walks on the ceiling and the parents pretend it's not haunted. Is that, I don't know if that's a trope. What would that even be? And do you love that? If you saw that, would you be like, yes? I didn't like it either, but the more I thought about it, it seemed to fit every story. Alex Ruby, I don't like stuff. Plot device? Yeah, like that. The plot armor, plot device, that kind of stuff, I don't like. You can't say every story is a coincidence or every story is blank because each one is different. Yeah. Yeah, plot intelligence. It happens like a series of coincidences. If coincidence is like the opposite of convenience, then I would like it even more, but it's not exactly. And then that you can also measure it like randomness because things that are too random is definitely not good. But a little bit of randomness is quite nice. Yeah, contrivance. That's what I'll stop watching a movie if there's too much of that. That was what was in Metro. I didn't finish Metro, that Eddie Murphy movie. The contrivances were insane, and so I didn't even finish it. Metro did have the thing where like I predicted the plot, but I don't usually try to do that, and I don't care, But if it's like I predict the most basic thing and then it still does that, it was like a cliche because it was like it's the bad guy who kills his partner and then they establish he has a girlfriend. I'm like, okay, if in the end the bad guy escapes prison and then kidnaps his girlfriend, I'm not going to watch it. I'm going to turn it off. And that's exactly what happened, but I don't know. I don't know if that's being fair because it's like, that's kind of what would happen. I don't know what else you'd do. It's like you already painted yourself into a corner with that. A trope I don't like. If someone sees a penguin in the backyard and tells someone to go look at it, they go back in the backyard and the penguin's not there. Guy's now seen as crazy. Yeah, if you're building up a character to be crazy, that cannot always be that can be like almost plot contrivance to make the jump. Because like, yeah, the reality is people aren't going to think you're crazy from that or whatever. You know what movie did that good though is The Witch. Built up the paranoia of it's not that they think she's crazy, but it's that they think she's a witch. And they build up the psychology of the people that are getting suspicious of her and then her reacting to it and kind of any reaction kind of digs her deeper potentially because they've already got their like what do you call it confirmation bias. That was pretty good. Every haunted house movie. The ending of Death Note was the only bad part. I haven't read it in ages, but I recall Kira kind of went stupid at the end. It's like the author needed to end it, and he kind of forced it a bit. Yeah, yeah, I think I agree. It's been a while for me too. I gotta eat this without choking. 1 second here. Romy, what's up? Let's see if there's anything else in here. Playing chicken where they know it but won't say it. Plausible deniability. Both want something willing to manipulate, but only if they maintain plausible deniability. Just asking for it while straight form is its own form of manipulation and not persuasive. Calling a bluff. I feel like there could be other listing things maybe. Meta psychology. Awareness to the tactics and the reaction, reactionary. And that's a little bit of that double negative stuff we're talking about. Self-depreciating. Self-depreciating, but then when the other person agrees with you, you get mad. That is almost like a cliche, though. Except I had dinner with my parents last night, and my dad kind of did that to my mom. It was funny. She said something like, he's like, I love this dinner. We should have this more often or something like that. And she's like, this one's so easy you could make it. And he's like, are you saying I can't cook? And she's like, no, I wasn't saying that. He's like, I don't know. He's like, hey, I can cook. Triple meta combo. This is my current favorite because it makes me laugh. Say someone is an example when someone uses reverse psychology, again, maintaining plausible deniability, even to themselves, they can convince themselves it is a blind spot. Maintaining plausible deniability, they utilize the reverse psychology to manipulate someone, but that person is aware of the reverse psychology, so the manipulation was a failure and is evident, but still ambivalent of the reverse psychology. They might want to react and test the reaction. It sounds complicated, but can actually make for fun dialogue. Yeah, I don't know. As I read that, I was like, what is that? We need an example. Well, here's an example. Jordan wants his girlfriend to get a job and help with rent, but doesn't want to straight up demand or even ask. He wants her to feel like it's her idea. He thinks of himself as a good guy and would never manipulate, so this all happens subconsciously. He buys her a gift, a video game, World of Warcraft. Thanks, she says. He says, you said you haven't played since you were a kid. What? I didn't finish it. I was going to write more. Because that doesn't show the example at all. But I guess he's building to get her to get a job somehow. Oh, this is a little bit like he's going to build into the reverse psychology, meaning he's going to, I don't know how you could do this subconsciously, but it would be kind of funny if he's like almost encouraging her to become a gamer girl streamer, and he buys her like Mountain Dew and shit, and she's like, I don't want to be a gamer girl streamer drinking Mountain Dew all the time. I want to get a job. And he's like, fine by me. So I don't know. That doesn't sound super authentic, like it would actually. But you could work that out. You could figure it out. The beginning was good. The beginning's funny. A situation. What's the scenario? Guy wants his girlfriend to get a job. You know, and that's like, you have that scenario. Guy wants his girlfriend to get a job, doesn't want to ask for it outright because he, whatever reason, doesn't want to hurt her feelings or doesn't want to seem manipulative. That is like a plot for a sitcom. Like you could build an entire episode around that. You'd probably need a B plot. That'd be like an A plot, or that could be the B plot. But when dad and son are schlepping the same chick, that sounds Greek. Does it count if he doesn't intentionally purchase it with the idea of her doing something to make money, but then the idea occurs to him after he gifts it? Oh yeah, maybe that's what he's trying to do. it's not even like the job. He just straight up wants her to become a streamer, a streamer babe. He's like, babe, trust me, I've seen these streamer babes. You're better looking than all of them, and you're so clever. You're so funny. I know you could do this. You will make so much money. You will get so many followers. We will make so much money. She's like, you just said we instead of me. She's like, are you my streamer pimp? I'm not doing this. He's like, you used to like video games. What's wrong with it now? Yeah, I think that is where it's going. Alex, you got closer to what I was thinking. That's funny. That does kind of make me laugh. A guy trying to convince his girlfriend to become a streamer. That's funny, you guys. I want to make a whole comic about that. That's hilarious. What, slice of life. My next creative block thing is going to be slice of life, so we can write that down. Maybe I'll just write it just here in parentheses because it's a funny plot. Funny, what do you call it? Sitcom plot. Tries to convince his girlfriend to become a streamer chick. It's like one step down from OnlyFans. She could fuck with them later. That could be if you needed like the sort of emotional beat at the end, is like she does become kind of successful as a streamer chick. It causes some tension maybe in their relationship or whatever, because she's like surpassed him now. She makes more money than him, and it's making him jealous or whatever. But then, yeah, like the gambit at the end would be her faking. I don't know if it's to test him or to try and like de-radicalize him or whatever, but she would fake to him like, hey, I was thinking I could probably make even more money if I did OnlyFans. Have you heard of that? And then he'd be like, no, what have I done? What have I created? And she's like, I'm just kidding. And he's like, oh, nice. And they like have milkshakes together. The end. She runs away to the circus. What if this is an actual sitcom? Let's build some of this out because we're on to something here. Has this been done, you guys? Is there a sitcom about a guy trying to convince his girlfriend to become a streamer? I had another kind of funny idea, and it was about like streaming conventions. Like, how they have giant conventions. And yeah, I don't know. There's a lot you could do and have it be kind of funny. Just a bunch of streamers all around. But like maybe there'd be like, I want to find out how realistic this could even be. Like if there even is like an OnlyFans convention, that would kind of be hilarious. Just in and of itself, that's hilarious. But then like a street preacher outside of the OnlyFans convention being like, don't do it, son. People walking in, he's like, don't do it, son. There's better things. Better things. I tell you, just even the smallest alternative. I've got printed out Playboys here. It's better than what you're doing. You're selling your soul. I'll trade you free. I don't know. It could be anything. He probably is more serious than that. He wouldn't be given printed Playboys, vintage Playboys. But yeah, maybe he does have to team up with the vintage Playboy guy who also hates OnlyFans. But that's still like stupid. But there's stuff in there that would be funny. But the street preacher in general is funny. I was trying to think. I had a scene and it was making me laugh, but it was like street preacher, like trying to be nice, but like trying to convince people not to go, not really having too much success. And I don't know. There's like another person on the street, kind of, and him like getting in a fight, whatever. So if it's like someone dressed as Spider-Man taking photos, it's in Vegas. It's like the Spider-Man Vegas street performer defending the OnlyFans chicks from the street preacher. I don't know. Okay. Oh yeah. So, but if it's a sitcom, you just need characters. So you got guy, girl living together, some tension with rent and money, he has a job, she doesn't at this point. And so like the world building of sitcoms is like, what are you putting in there that's going to become like the core, of this whole universe? So like their house, some of it's like online. The maybe the convention eventually. Convention question mark. Like they got friends question mark. But one thing I was thinking is the Y. The YMCA nearby. So the girlfriend like works out at the Y. She's pretty hot. That's why he has the scheme to get her to. The only thing I'd say about this too is this sounds like one episode. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't sound like an arc for a season. And I don't know if it sounds like a pilot. And then so if you take it away, then what do you got? You still just got a guy living with his girlfriend. And I don't know if, like how much you want it to be like this could be the modern, we're going to tackle modern issues, blah, blah, blah. Maybe not. Maybe that's not a good idea. But yeah, if it's just like they got a house, they got the Y, they got friends, and it's just stories that happen. But it'd be a kind of thing like you'd want to think of, at least five. You might want to think of like 20 ideas. Like once you got your characters, you got your little world. You kind of want 20 ideas all to have these little jokes play out. One of the things I thought that you can do is like you can have uh like this was a writer hack earlier, but so you have your char- main character of the week. Is it recurring or just guy girl passing through? But they have an iconic character trait that requires a plot point slash straight up plot line to resolve. And it's not like when you frame it as they have a problem, they have a goal, there's an obstruction and an obstacle. That's like, the classic storytelling thing. That works great for movies. But I kind of like doing it with episodic storytelling. It seems like it's worked well for me. I've just kind of started framing things like this like last week. But and then one example is Butch in Pulp Fiction. He's obsessed with his grandfather's watch. The watch gets left behind by his girlfriend, so he has to go back and get his watch, even though the mob is probably waiting for him there. That's almost like that is like an episodic little story within Pulp Fiction. Like that would almost be like a TV show, like an episode of like The Wire. I don't know if The Wire is structured like that, but um, yeah. Maybe the street preacher moonlights as one of the VTubers in his spare time. That made me laugh. Anything that has like the irony, like irony will always be money. So I don't know. Why hasn't any indie person made a successful sitcom on YouTube? I think they might be harder than they sound. I don't know. Like sitcom, is it like a dying thing? Like there isn't even that many, yeah, like around now. I'm not sure. They kind of evolved into like The Office, which is like barely a sitcom. It's like a little different. And that's good too, but I don't even know if I'd call it a sitcom. I don't know if it has. I don't think it has a laugh track. I can't remember. She gets addicted to money and e-thoughting, which leads to OnlyFans. When he objects, she leaves him for another man. See, that's maybe more realistic, but I like the wholesome ending where she's just joking because she knows he's super sensitive about it. He plots with a wise street hobo. Okay, this is like if it was a movie. If it was a movie with like more twists and turns and you want to extend it out, kind of, which is hilarious. Alex VRB's got the plot here. So she does go OnlyFans. She gets rich. She dumps her boyfriend. She may or may not get another man. I imagine she probably would. And then he plots with the wise street hobo, who it turns out had his wife ruined by his wife becoming OnlyFans, thought to get revenge. That's funny. Yeah, that reminds me. It's funny if like these pairings, like, uh, what about in there's a movie called The King of Comedy, Scorsese movie. Nasser, you seen that one? It stars Robert De Niro. But I loved that movie, and the thing I kind of liked about it most, the single thing I liked about it most was that he's a stalker for this like late night host, but the late night host has like another stalker, and he's like in a love hate relationship with that stalker. She's a girl, and they're like friends, but they kind of hate each other because they're competing because they're both stalkers. It's amazing. Like thinking of that, the way it kind of expands the world. Like, oh yeah, of course, if he's got one stalker, he probably has two. Like this famous guy, and like there's this what was I going to say? This ecosystem around this guy, this ecosystem of stalkers. That's like the world building once you got the ecosystem. So, yeah, so even like if we try to apply that to our thing here, like it's like what is the ecosystem? And that's like characters, location, and it could be good if like those things kind of overlap, like working from home's a little thing from home, getting out the house. Some of this is like my life minus the girlfriend, but like working from home and getting out of the house. The daily struggle of today. I worked out for what, like almost 2 hours, uh, which I don't know why I did that. Now I'm sore. But oh, he's a famous full time VTuber, moonlighting as a street preacher for kicks. Yeah. I was thinking that one of the original ideas was that, and this is kind of stupid too, guys, but it's the girl who goes OnlyFans. She's the number one model. Uh, well, if she actually became the number one model, like it would make the other number one model would be like super jealous, like the witch looking in the mirror and saying like, phone on the wall, who's the most subbed OnlyFans of them all? And it's like Geraldine is the most subbed of them all. She's like, what? It's not me. Who is this new woman on the scene? And it's the other girls coming up. So she kind of orchestrates her downfall, maybe. I don't know. She's like jealous. She's like, you could do this is a trope, is the aging beauty is like a trope, and it's great. And I think that would be a good one for Batman, for Poison Ivy, to do a version where she's aging and hates it and hates beautiful young women because she's jealous, and she would you know f with them. That'd be like kind of like a plot. But all right, trope, aging beauty. What were we saying? Oh yeah, so but it'd be a kind of funny plot if the girl who's at the top, she kind of gets like recorded in private at the convention, kind of saying that she thinks all the men who subscribe to her are total dumbass pigs, and she just likes taking their money. And that gets leaked, and then she finds out it gets leaked, that she was filmed and they leaked it, and the entire convention filled with these like, simpy dudes or whatever. They're all incensed, and then I'm like, I don't know if they like become a mob and try and kill her. And then the street preacher actually has to save her because it's against his ethical code. He's like, we're not supposed to support her and give her money, but by God, we're not supposed to kill her and lynch her either. Jesus. So he ends up helping her. Caleb Brennan says, LOL. Some person, she gains a massive S&M audience. It actually would be funny if like setups and payoffs. That if this is on my thought, if you actually did like a story about OnlyFans convention, I would kind of want to do it in a way where there isn't like porn in it. So you got to avoid that kind of stuff, but you can't like totally avoid it, or it's like cowardly or whatever. But a kind of funny way you could do it is if there's like someone who has kind of a fetish and he wants the OnlyFans person to do it and they don't want to do it. Like maybe they have a huge tongue. And so the fans keep requesting them to stick out their tongue, and they keep saying no because they're like, no, I'm not going to do it like in public. I'm ashamed of my giant tongue and how far it can reach. And it'd be funny if she's like later on in the story, she's like locked in the basement in the water main, and she can't reach the key to get out of the basement. But her her tongue, she reaches it and escapes because of her tongue. The guy who was finishing her to do it, he's just staring, and she's like, stop staring. Prince of the Genesis. Quite a few 80s movies dealing with rich poor turns reversals like Trading Places, Beverly Hills Cop. It was partly those Saturday Night Live guys adjusting his fame. Yeah, I like that. It's universal. I could go on the trope list. By the way, my stream is flashing, guys. Let me know if I'm cutting out or whatever. Oh, what's up, man? We're going kind of a long time, but we're still I'm like, we could talk about tropes, literally. I'm back. I'm back. I believe Narwhal kicked himself. Now it's blank space. Well, I think as it cut out was I saying like, am I roboting? Yeah. It might still be not the greatest internet, by the way. And I was gonna say like, hey, we'll go a little bit longer, but I'm like, shit, the internet is messing with it. Um, yeah. Well, okay. What we should do? So real fast. See this little thing. We're page 11 of 37, so like a third through. Uh, and not all of this will get printed in the book. Like I want it to literally just be lists if possible, you know. So we'll see if I can do that. Um, but and that's only, I mean, 37 pages even of lists. That's not the longest. Like the other nonfiction book I did, Interactivity, it's like 120 essay style. So it's like a legit kind of small, cool little book. Um, yeah, and the inspirational pocketbook, it might be like, it could be cool if it's like 64 pages maybe, or if I get up to like, has a little spine to it or whatever. You want it to be maybe big enough to have a spine. But yeah, then including just a lot of this like trope talk style stuff, but organized in a way that you can open it, flip through, read some lists, read some tropes, kind of discussion, kind of this idea that yeah, the tropes hold these other contexts and plot points within them. Like I say this always as a main example, but one of the tropes that people talk about and one I've heard is through my research, it's called boy finds a dragon egg. And so that trope, you can think of it and you're like, okay, that it if you think about it, it actually holds a whole movie or an episode, but like a whole movie within it. And it's we've seen that those movies. So like one of them is E.T. But the boy finds a dragon egg thing is like here's like the plots that come with it. Like he has to keep it secret first thing. He doesn't want anyone else to know. He has to like incubate it and kind of grow as he gains some responsibility because he has to take care of it. It kind of will evolve at some point. But in this process of him incubating it, he can't do it himself. He does have to bring in one person that he really trusts to kind of help him. And then one person probably accidentally finds out and they have to bring them in too, but they can't exactly trust him. And then the thing will then at some point kind of evolve. But then, yeah, the cat will be out of the bag, the cat out of the bag moment. That's like, so the cat out of the bag moment, it's not a trope or a cliche, but that's a thing. If I say it, everyone knows what it is. Um, and it's like a positive thing. If you can build to a good cat out of the bag moment, that's like there's no downside. That's always great. But yeah, and then eventually, when once the cat's out of the bag, then the reason you were keeping it secret in the first place, all these like larger forces out of the frying pan into the fire, the world kind of expanding. You got larger forces trying to appropriate it for themselves, and you have to deal with that. And then usually, yeah, the dragon itself will evolve, and that will help you out of that kind of like problem, and then that will sort of wrap up the climax more or less. And there's the big in all these stories there is like a big emotional core with the dragon itself and the boy. Oh, that's the thing. Then the final big emotional climax is they have to say goodbye and you have to set it free or whatever, you know. And probably in there too is like the moment where it almost dies or it does get like kidnapped by the larger forces. The boy has to go like try and rescue it. So I say that I'm like, okay, I just literally described like the plot of like E.T. And yeah, I'm like, you could do a story like that, and people wouldn't necessarily be like, "Oh, you're just ripping off ET." People might be like, "Hey, I love it. This is like a lot of fun or whatever," you know, because you're kind of making it your own as you go. I don't know if there's a version of it before ET. I want to know if Spielberg, if he just like invented that shit, that would be kind of impressive and amazing. But I think even he was kind of pulling these pre-existing tropes. Um, yeah, and that story, there's like, you know, quite a few examples of it, of that style of story. Um, Nasser says you're describing creepsters. Yeah, yeah. So I mean that you probably are working within that trope of boy finds a dragon egg. It's a classic '80s trope. Um, yeah, it grows up, goes on a rampage. He has to stop it. That's a good twist in a different direction. You could take it. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, so that's like what the book will be eventually. Although eventually I got to stop doing streams and just going over it, taking little notes. It's also disorganized. I got to organize it, decide what it actually kind of is, what the book will be, and then get it ready, get a print file. It's kind of a lot of work, but I have all this stuff here. I'm like, and the actual list of like tropes, like because they're kind of hard to think of. And so if you say boy finds a dragon egg, okay, what else? What other ones? I want to say I have almost 100 that actually hold an entire plot for a story within them. Um, and there, maybe I only have 50. Like it's hard to think of them. That's like, that's why I wanted to do a little research on this Hercules thing, see if any pop up. But let me see if where the actual list is somewhere. It might be towards the bottom. Uh, Scrolling. Yeah, see, I kind of wrote some essays here and there. I might delete those because we just want a kid in King Arthur's court. That almost feels like that could be one of those things. I'm trying to think. Midnight in Paris, Forrest Gump. It kind of holds, this holds like a plot within it. It's a little bit like the fish out of water, you could say. But fish out of water doesn't hold like a plot within it. And then a kid in King Arthur's court does hold a plot within it. Win something you don't want and have to repurpose it to even make it worth it. Yeah, I feel like that has a whole plot within it, kind of. But what's an example of that? I'm trying to think. There's definitely like examples, but uh, the fool triumphant. That doesn't. I don't know why I wrote that. I'll be home for Christmas. That does. That has a full plot that comes with it. Dun, dun, dun. Getting transportation in the first place, upgrading it halfway through. I think this is like the tropes that it includes. Gotta get laid before we graduate high school. I don't know if that's like a subgenre. See, that's like it's hard to organize them. Race movie tropes, folk hero elevated. That's fun. That needs a little more to know the whole plot or whatever. But that I like that one a lot. That one hasn't been done too much, I don't think either. Journey to Mecca. Take back the Holy Land. Example, Revenge of the Nerds, Porky's, Lion King, Bug's Life, Emperor's New Groove. Some of that is like the tropes or whatever is like exile, which I can put that too. You know who was in exile? Alex VRB? Napoleon. Prince and the Pauper, Parent Trap. That's the switcheroo. That's some stuff. But yeah, if you say Prince and the Pauper, that has, I don't know why Parent Trap was right. I forget Parent Trap, but that has a whole plot that comes with it. The Prince and the Pauper plot. And yeah, you could repurpose it to anything. You could repurpose it to like hockey or something. Like a star gets swapped out with, I don't know how you'd explain how they you might need like magic and they switch bodies. Actually, it would be funny if what's it weekend at Bernie's. It'd be funny if for some reason in a hockey team you had them they had to switch out the best player for like the worst player who was on the B League team, and but maybe because they look alike or whatever, because the I don't know, because the best player was going to get assassinated or something, so he gets hired to be a body double, but he doesn't know it, so he's like a patsy. But he sucks, and so everyone wonders why that player is playing terrible all of a sudden, and then some other stuff happens. But I was thinking it could be like Weekend at Bernie's because the team has to make him look good, and how they even do that, like then it might be getting too stupid. I'm like, they have a game against Russia, like, and they need but it's in Russia, but it's not against Russia. So and they've infiltrated the entire other team, so they need them to play along too to make him look good. I don't know. It's retarded. Training in exile, preparing in exile. These are like, if you get into like the plot points that are within this kind of stuff, then yeah, like that's still a trope, but it's not like, it's almost like another word I'm trying to think of is these big tropes that have the entire plot line encased within them. King David, Emperor's New Groove. Bad guy sends assassin to the exiled lands to tie up loose ends. I just saw a movie that did that one too. So yeah, like this, like yeah, you could do a Hercules plot about this. You know, Hercules would be there. He'd meet the king in exile. Someone has come into town to try and kill the king. Literally, the movie I saw, I think it was called The Exiled. I'm gonna type it. It was Douglas Fairbanks, who's famous silent movie actor. But then the movie is like from like 1945 or something. So he's a little bit older. He's still like not old, but then he's actually talking in it, and he's a great actor. And he plays a king who'd been exiled, and then the people, Cromwell's people, they wear the hat. They call them like flat tops or I don't know, something like that. And they're coming to kill him. Blah 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 blah. But that movie was awesome. Bad guy enjoying the spoils. Good guy healing the spoils? I don't know why I wrote that. I don't know what that means. I will dull him with the new shoulder. Fish out of water. Drunk mentor. The drunk mentor often, that carries quite a bit with it. Um, Almost the whole plot kind of comes with that one. Um, I can even kind of give you an example. So, like, if I say drunk mentor, this is what's fun why it holds the whole plot. Like, he's going to be mentoring someone. So then you got your other main character. The other main character obviously has a problem that the drunk mentor can help him with. The drunk mentor kind of requires, he has his own issues, like he's an alcoholic, but in the meantime, he requires like payment in the form of like booze. So he's kind of a positive and negative force while being a mentor to this kid. He gets him into trouble when he's too drunk, but when he's drunk, he can also give him like the wisdom he needs or whatever. And then kind of through their trials and tribulations, they can kind of help each other. Like at the end, sometimes with the mentor character, they die, but if the movie's actually about the drunk mentor, it'd be nice if at the end he gives up the booze or whatever. He probably has a rock bottom moment before that. You can have, it builds to like some good emotion. It's between the mentee and the mentor. And that's not even discussing like, yeah, what's this problem the mentee has? It could be anything. But with that, there was one, I had an idea kind of within that, and probably never going to do it. It's kind of stupid, but it's like a girl gets a job at Marvel, but she's a DEI hire and can't draw. But then there's an old white guy in the alley who's a drunk who hasn't had a job in a decade because he's white. And he ends up drawing her stuff for her, and she publishes it as herself and gets really rich and famous, and and pays him in booze. And I forget what happens after that. Like there'd be like, you know, you could do a semi-realistic version of that. Like he'd be like, if she started to get successful, he's like, hey, you got to give me some of that money, and then there might be some tension. She needs him, and she's trying to figure out. You don't want her to be like a bad guy. In that case, she starts as like the flawed main character, so you want her to like learn a lesson and whatever, however it works out. Um, but yeah, Dele, distant relative left me something in their will. Yeah, that's one that fits. There's an entire plot that fits with that. Yeah. Um, Big Brother comes home to find the house in disarray. This is another really good one. Uh, I don't know if the word Big Brother is loaded. You don't need that, but what do they call, what's the like wayward son or whatever? What's that? That's like a trope too. The prodigal son. Like maybe I should just say the prodigal son comes home to find the house in disarray. But I don't know. There's a million examples of this one, and it's awesome. But I saw one. It's called Vengeance, a kung fu movie from 1971. And yeah, it's like the big brother's been gone a long time. In the meantime, the bad guys have like taken over the entire town. They've killed his ex-girlfriend and his younger brother, but his like middle brother's still alive. So there's that guy's so fucked. And then the big brother comes home and he's like, "What the fuck's going on? Like you guys really shit a brick about keeping this order in this town." And he's like, you know, he's like, "I'm gonna fucking do something about it." And so he like starts fighting back, and it's badass. But the Odyssey has some of that vengeance. Yeah, Robin Hood has. Yeah, Robin Hood returns from the Crusades. That's totally this plot. Prodigal Son returns. Boy finds a dragon egg. We talked about that one. Get the band back together. Assemble your team. Yeah. The failed delivery with the cargo stolen. That's a fun one. That has the entire plot is right there. And you could do a Hercules episode of that, you know? Like Hercules takes a job to help someone, he has to transport some kind of important thing. Like, it could be it could be a human, it could be gold, but that's kind of part of where it becomes fun. You can think of something besides something, not those two things, that he's got to transfer that is like kind of fun. And even if it's like maybe it's like a really special sword, like that's kind of still in that cliche realm. But then if it's like the sword, you could give it a ton of backstory and context. That's kind of a big part of the story, how it could play out. And then yeah, like it doesn't work right away. He doesn't get it. It gets stolen, and he has to like go get it back. He's kind of in a little bit hot water because he promised he'd help this person, and then he failed to help them. Um, then he has to deal with that. Yeah, the example, I guess, if you're under siege, you need to kind of escape and find help. That's kind of a trope. Unite the tribes. That's honestly a great one. Has a whole plot with it. Raised by wolves. Totally, totally, totally. Request asylum. That could be like a Star Trek plot. Help a friend but get dragged into their problem even worse. Yeah. No more safety net. That one doesn't have a full plot exactly. If there's a way to word it where it would. But Deliverance is awesome. Jurassic Park. Those are great examples of like this being awesome. The no more safety net and the exit cut off. That's almost like that could go under the checklist. I'll put that note because so I guess I'm trying to build like a checklist list and then a trope list. And you use the tropes to check the checklist. And the checklist is like you want to hit these beats, like these are like structural kind of things almost, and you don't have to hit them all, but like one would be like ticking clock. Like you almost always want a ticking clock, even if you can define it like broadly, like there's not actually a ticking clock, but there's a sense of time passing, a sense of impending like things you're building towards. It's on the horizon, it's coming this way. Like you want that sense. No more safety net checklist. I'll read that later, not know what the fuck that means. What if I say for the checklist? That still would confuse me. If I say for the checklist, list above. That might help. Lift the curse. Totally. Princess Nanamoki, Hell's Moon Castle, The Ring, Army of Darkness. Tropes for Lift the Curse. Yeah, there's a whole thing. Revenge-o-matic. So I feel like some of these that hold whole plots, there's at least 20 of them. But I wish there was 100, but they're hard to think of. Like, there aren't that many stories. Like that's why I don't know. Like The Simpsons. Like if you run a show that has like 1,000 episodes, it's like what are those episode ideas? How did they think of them? And some of the stuff they do, which is somewhere in here, I know The Simpsons. They'll like adapt famous short stories. And that's like 1/10 of the Simpsons episodes or more are just adaptations of famous short stories and the Simpsons doing their version of a famous play or movie or short story. Like there literally might be like a Simpsons version of Deliverance, where the most useful guy immediately gets taken out of the picture in however that happens. He probably doesn't die and get butt raped like in like in Deliverance or whatever. But something would happen. I know there's one where they go like Boy Scout camping and they end up adrift at sea and then they see seagulls and Homer's like or someone, maybe Ned, he's like, seagulls only fly around seagulls always stay near the shore. They only fly out to ocean to die. We're saved. And then the seagull dive bombs dead into the water. They're like, damn it, we're not saved. Michael Dusey says the child with all the answers. See, that one I would put in like cliches to avoid for some reason. But that, yeah, like you're right. That fits. Like you could almost do a story around it, I think. But I don't know. Would you say there's a predilection towards a specific genre for these tropes, or could they be applied to any? Yeah, good question. I feel like they could be applied to like Hercules, or like they could be applied to like Star Trek, but this is like genre fiction. Like I don't know if they could be applied to sitcoms, all of them. Some of them maybe. Like even like Boy Finds a Dragon Egg, like you could almost do a sitcom version of that where like the guy finds like even if you use Friends or something, it's like Joey finds something that he has to keep a secret from Crane from Kramer. No, from his roommate, whatever, the guy who died. Forget all the Friends characters' names. But, you know, why would he keep a secret from him? And you have that reason, you could kind of build your whole plot around that. But it's like this object, maybe it would hurt his feelings. If you're doing like a soap opera version, it's like Joey is dating Kramer's ex-girlfriend. And it was a bad breakup and Kramer is still not over it. So Joey has to keep it a secret. And then blah, blah, blah. Joey has to end up confiding in someone to keep the secret. And shit goes wrong, cat out of the bag, emotional, blah, blah, blah. Then has to say goodbye to E.T. at the end somehow. I feel like that they've had sort of like plots like that in Seinfeld even, which is way weirder, but they have those kind of plots. There's one plot in Seinfeld where like Jerry, he's dating like a supermodel and she's like, she's too much. I swear if there were two of me, I could date her, but when it's just me, I can't do it. And George is like, look no further, I'm your man. So George becomes his shadow secondary self to take care of things so that it's like two Jerrys dating the woman. And obviously like shit goes wrong or whatever. Yeah, Nasser says getting the band back together. Yeah, like some of them, you say them and you're like, oh, I would love to see a version of that. Like, and some of them you're like, I do not want to see that ever again. I've seen too many. But yeah, getting the band back together, like it almost like doesn't get old. Um, and they could kind of spoof that one too or whatever. Yeah, Dale says the subplots tying together in the end. That itself is like a trope. That's like a structural trope. Um, the bounty hunt. So the only thing I'd say about this is like, yeah, you could do a story about a bounty hunt, but usually there might be like something else to it, some kind of dramatic irony or whatever playing. But if you say like a bounty hunter is assigned his biggest task yet, but his most money making, this time he has to track down his own daughter. Like that's like stupid. Like if you hear that, you might roll your eyes. But that would check the irony box. But you don't always need that, but something like that maybe. I don't know. The escort mission. These are like one you would have this and you have something else on top of it, and the two together add that dramatic irony and make it work. Even the escort mission, like uh, the one that they do a lot with the escort mission is whatever. Like the guy falls in love with the girl, has to escort the girl, and then he falls in love with her. Or body, it's like Bodyguard. Uh, there's a good '80s version of that that's directed by Ridley Scott. It's like one of his lesser famous movies, and it's awesome though, but it's weird. I forget what it's called. Undercover Infiltrate, Secret Identity, Viva la Resistance, Long Shot, Shot in the Dark, Underdog, Hail Mary, Land the Important Contract. Yeah, a lot of these aren't that awesome that has the whole plot with them. You know, it's weird. Some of them kind of do, like Undercover Infiltrate. You know, one that is a good one. Uh, what do you call it? Prisoners offered freedom if they go on a suicide mission. Boom, we got a new one. How often have you guys seen that one? Like 50 times? But does it ever get old? I would argue no, it does not. And I saw versions like a twist on that I really liked, and it was prisoner offers. I'll put this one in parentheses because it's like specific. Example, Crack House. The movie's called Crack House. Prisoner, he finds out in jail his girlfriend has become a crack whore slave for the main drug dealer. So he goes to the cops and offers to go undercover for them. And I think he might even tell him, he has his alternate motive to save his girlfriend, but he'll help them take down the drug dealer too. Something like that. That was great. The alternate motive. Why did I write movie? Did I really do that? The alternate motive is awesome whenever it comes up. That's another one, like I can write this, but it doesn't. Motives. That doesn't hold a whole plot within it, so. But the one that does is land the important contract. That totally, oddly, does fill a whole movie with it, a whole story with landing the important contract. Because one of the ones that comes with this one is it's like sort of out of the frying pan into the fryer, aka welcome to the big leagues, aka Snow White getting fooked by the jealous witch. Yeah. And this could apply to a million things too. And it's a little more slice of lifey. But like, yeah, if we even try and fit it into like Friends, it's like, so Joey, if he gets like, he's trying out for a role, and if he gets the role, that's great, but it comes with its whole new like thing with problems or whatever. And it gets more soap opera-y. I don't know how Friends would do it, but like you might have the jealous actor who he's competing with really is out to get him after that point, so he has to deal with that, Which I don't know if that would be in Friends. Animal Kingdom. This is like kind of like Rise Through the Ranks, like rookie rises through the ranks, earns respect of the, what would you call, like the older class, the older elite class, eventually replaces them. Animal Kingdom is like Scarface. There's like a million. It could also apply to sports movies, etc. Win the Bet. Yeah, not really a full plot there, but New Cadet School, not really a full plot. That's also like borderline, that triggers my cliche one, but Who Done It? The controller / leader goes mad That one holds a whole plot. That one is awesome. I probably will delete some of these. Like, I'll delete, like, Who Done It, New Kid at School. I'll just delete those. We're only keeping ones that, like, literally hold an entire movie. But this one's awesome. When you have a leader that, a group. Oh, you know what kind of another one that goes with that is this was in some of the Hercules ones, but what do you call it? It's like a group of people that are like traveling from point A to point B because their old shit got destroyed. What do they call that? If you're a refugees, like you could just literally say refugees, but that one goes with the leader goes mad. If they go mad, you gotta explain it well or whatever, make it make sense. But I wrote the AI goes mad. That's kind of fun because you can just have them get hacked or whatever. And then this thing they've been trusting this whole time, all of a sudden they can't trust it anymore. Like that's the whole movie. You could do a bunch with that. And there is some fun examples. Some of these are in video games, which is fun. The milieu. Favor to do a favor? Do me a favor chain? Seek assistance? Maybe, I don't know, seek assistance is. Seek assistance. Seven Samurai could also be like get the band back together, but if you don't know them, but he's like, yeah, assemble your team or whatever. Approach a third party for assistance. Heavy debt paid with an unusual payment. That kind of fits in there. Plug that in, you get a whole episode or a whole movie. Yeah. Enemies forced to cooperate. I like that one. Unwanted house guest teaches host a life lesson. Totally. I'm writing that one down. House guest teaches host a life lesson. I know one is like, isn't it called like Hesser or something? The rock and roll one. Hesher. Example, Hesher. Jeremy, what you doing? We're writing tropes, genre tropes. Curmudgeon and Free Spirit team up. Yeah, that's good too. All right, what do we got? I wanted to, before we get out of here, because we're almost 2 hours now, I do want to go over some Hercules stuff. We'll just see what comes up if I read a few of these. We'll go kind of fast. Let me have a sip of coffee here. Shit, I finished it. There's only a drop left. So one thing I noticed, they say there's Hercules movies. So these are the TV films. I'm going to see if they're on YouTube. But they say they're all from 1994. I always thought TV films came later. And then season 1 starts in 1995. And I started watching season 1. And it's like pretty good. It actually is like, it comes in with its legs. It feels like they don't even need season 1 to get good. And then season 2 is great or whatever. Season 1 feels great. But I'm curious about these. I think I need to watch some of these. Because I haven't, maybe when I was a kid I saw some, but I haven't seen these. But I read these plots. They didn't have too much like tropey stuff. And the way they describe it, the episodes don't. But the episodes all do, but it's just the descriptions don't include it. But we'll read a few and see if things pop up. And so we're kind of looking for some of the checklist stuff. Like, is there hinting of like the emotional core coming from like a character of the week? Like not Hercules, but Hercules helps that character kind of with their like arc or whatever. And then we're looking at are there any tropes that they're using, and are these the kind of tropes that include the whole plot line with them. So we'll read a few here. I'll actually skip the first one because that's the pilot, and that's like Hercules. His family gets killed. He gets pissed, but then someone talks him out of like going the dark path of revenge. Honestly, the pilot is not that good as I remember, but but then it starts to get good. Okay, Hercules runs from the $50 of Thespius. Hercules agrees to aid the town of Trachis, terrorized by a Cyclops, but soon learns that the creature's actions may not be entirely unjustified. So if we tried to turn that into a trope and write it, like what would we say? So we're trying to make it like broader so it could apply to anything. So it's like what would you say? It's like bad guy is actually innocent. Good guy sent after bad guy. That could go with we had written in here what's it? The bounty hunter. After bad guy. Bad guy's actually innocent. Might delete that later. It's just so broad. It doesn't trigger anything super awesome. But you know the show, what's the See You Space Cowboy show? Um, what's that one called? I'm like Space Cowboy. No, it's called something else. But you guys know I'm talking about the anime. That's all about bounty hunters, and they have like 28 episodes, all about bounties, and they're all different and they're all fun. And I think they kind of do a thing too where it's like eight or so episodes. It's not as many as you'd think. It's like eight, maybe a little more, are quote unquote story episodes that have to do this overarching arc that's awesome and emotional and everything with Spike, and mostly with Spike, but with some touch on some of the others. Yeah, it's like only 8 out of 28. Then they have 20 that are like truly episodic, no connection to anything else, just like a fun little adventure. They're like Cowboy Bebop. Yeah. Okay. 3. A group of refugees, see, we wrote refugees, fleeing Parthus, a city destroyed by Hera, seeks Hercules' help in staving off the attacks of the goddess and her followers. Hercules learns along the way that Proteus, the leader of the refugees, had stolen a cup from Hera, prompting her wrath on the city and continued pursuance of the group. So yeah, if we I do like that. It's but I don't know how you'd write it as like a trope, but anything that holds secrets are always awesome. So like Proteus is keeping a secret, so that you got a group of refugees. One of them has a secret. His secret is that the whole problem that they have is his fault because he stole this cup from Hera. So they kind of got to get to the bottom of that. He's just keeping it secret, and that's the episode. And it's good. It's that's one of the that was a really good one. But I don't know how I would write that if I try and write like the broad trope it's using. Like it's like too broad, but you could say like group of people. One of them has a secret that is causing the whole group problems. And should we say but benefiting them or will benefiting them? But benefiting them or will benefit them. I don't know. I don't know. Let's read another. Hercules is invited to the festival of Dionysus in Melided because of an ill omen. Nothing seems to be out of place as the festival begins, but the presence of Tiresias cues Hercules that something foul's afoot, and he tries to get to the bottom of it. That one, I wasn't paying full attention. It was late at night, and I might have been looking at my phone a little bit. I think I've seen 8 so far, so those first 8 I do know, and I can decode a little better what these brief descriptions mean. But I kind of remember that one not being the greatest. That one had, I'm pretty sure it had the brother trying to take over the kingdom from the king, but the younger brother didn't like that and, tried fighting his brother for the honor of his father. Bad older brother jealous of his father. And yeah, you could write that down as like a trope, but I don't know. Uh, Ares plans to form an army of children, part of his bid to cover the world in war without end. Naturally, it falls to Hercules to stop his evil half brother. Thankfully, he has the aid of the warrior blacksmith at Atlanta. That one was good too. That was a really good one. But some of these, I remember they wrap up. It's kind of because they're TV show, but they kind of wrap up so fast, and it in some ways it downplays the emotion, but it's there. The fact they just hit the beat is good. But like there's two boys, they're best friends, and they get recruited into this evil gang. And then Hercules at the end, he kind of confronts them and gets them out of it. And it's good. But you know what? As I say that, I'm like, they do that trope or that plot in Ninja Turtles. You remember the one kid? Is he Danny? Is Danny his name? Gets recruited by the Foot Clan. This totally could be like a trope, so we are going to write it. This might be a good one, actually. So we say, kid gets recruited into a bad situation, and can we say bad slash, what's it called if you're, hedonistic maybe. And then we can say like gang, army, cult, group, etc. But yeah, like like you have a high school version where it's jocks that are dicks. That's a cliche, but this new kid comes to school. The jocks try to recruit him into their group. Kind of become a bad influence on him. Blah blah blah. He eventually finds his real friends. That's like a thing where these will hit like. If I say that and I say that plot, I think some John Hughes stuff almost does that, but does it in like a way that's not cliche at all, or not eye rolling, not what's another word? Not like heavy handed or anything. But if you do it TV style, kind of be quick, hit the beats, it can borderline be heavy handed. But just the fact that you're hitting the emotional beats really counts for a lot. So it really makes the audience feel good about what they saw. I'm talking for myself a little bit, but like in that case, if it's like kid gets recruited by bullies, becomes a bully, but at the end he renounces the bullies, he snaps out of it. He would get brought. The person who would help him get out of it would be like the main, the person the show's about. Like that's kind of an arc for a traveling character who comes in and out, but the character like Hercules would be the one to help these kids or whatever. New girlfriend has a stalker. That one has a full plot. Do me a favor goes wrong. That's almost like failed delivery. I might delete that, but I'll leave it. Okay, what do we got? A woman named Penelope is set to marry a man named Marcus, but the centaur Nemesis wishes her for himself and makes a deal with Hera to make her his. But he first has to kill the eternal thorn in Hera's side, Hercules. Yeah. I don't know. I don't see any easy tropes there. Except maybe new girlfriend has a stalker. Which is funny. We just said it. Episode 7. Idols becomes prideful after some initial successes and arrogantly decides to race Hercules to the city of Thrace. The two separate, but then Hercules finds he has to contend with his old flame Nemesis sent by Hera to kill Iolaus for his behavior. So yeah, I'm glad I've seen this one because I can describe it better. I feel like you glean nothing from it, but this was the best episode I've seen yet. And it is, a lot of it's like, it's sort of like dramatic irony always counts for so much if you can get that, and emotion counts for so much. But she's sent to kill uh, Iolus for his pride, and I don't even know if they say it's by Hera. And so, um, what Nemesis? She tells Hercules, like, it's his pride is why it's why he ran away from you to prove himself. And if you help him, because Hercules kind of follows him, and Iolaus gets into a lot of trouble, and Hercules is gonna help him, and she says, "Do not help him because that will only make his pride worse, and he's gonna want to prove it even more." And that's why I'm sent to kill him. So she doesn't say this, but she's almost like, "Hey, I'm trying to help you. Like we can. I don't have to kill him if he doesn't get too prideful." Like she doesn't say that, which is good. Like, but that's like the implication. You kind of find out at the end that she actually was kind of trying to help Hercules because he's pretty mad at her because he's like, you just do what you're sent to do. You're sent to kill this man who doesn't even deserve it, and you're gonna do it." And she's like, "I can't do anything about it." Like he's like, "Screw you, whatever." But then at the end, uh, Iolus and Hercules wants to prove to Iolus that he doesn't kind of think of himself as above him or whatever. So Hercules is like, "I trust you with my life." So they it's at these games that's like part of the plot. So they make it to the games. So Hercules has to hold an apple on his head, and Iolus has to shoot the apple off of his head. And Iolus, he's hesitating because I think he might have to shoot it blindfolded at Hercules. And something happens where he ends up not shooting, and he like shoots it somewhere else at a bad guy instead or whatever. And then Hercules talks to Nemesis one more time, and Hercules is like, "What would you have done if he had shot the arrow? Like even if he had hit the arrow, like it's not like he'd hit me, but what would you have done if he had fired the arrow at me to prove that he's worthy or whatever?" Which is like prideful act. She's like, I would have had to kill him. And so it's like, we've talked a little bit. This came up in the chat, but that's like that sort of recontextualizes what just happened, where you're watching Iolus and Hercules play this game where he's gonna maybe shoot this arrow blindfolded. They've set up that he has this pride issue. He's hesitating, and you kind of don't know exactly what to think of it. And then as soon as she says that, you have this flashback to the recontextualization of that whole moment, which is awesome. That's kind of part of like the interactivity thing. I don't know if that counts as straight up dramatic irony. It might just be straight up dramatic irony, but it is like, this is another, like, if we put it in the checklist thing, it's things, a checklist thing you're trying to do. I'll have to write this again, like checklist is you're trying to provide moments that force a recontextualization of either past events or future predictions. That's so broad, but that's a big part of what interactivity is, of like this. That's like the participation that the audience has, is they're constantly tracking the recontextualization as the plot is unfolding. And yeah, if you can have it come to a head in that pretty nice, elegant way where the plot wraps up, you get your emotional kind of lessons learned arc thing, you get some dramatic irony, and on top of it, you get Hercules kind of getting closure with his ex-girlfriend that he is really pissed at. So that's a good one. You get like this kind of twist that she's actually a good person and has been kind of pulling strings behind the scenes to help Iolus pass his test. 8. By the way, we'll go a few more minutes. We're almost wrapping up here, but after purchasing an Asian slave to free her, Hercules gets more than he bargained for when she asks for his help in freeing her fiance, who incidentally is set to be fed to the lions in a large public spectacle. Yeah. Did I put in one of the tropes, I put like favor leads to a favor or something like that. But that's kind of the chain of favors. That's kind of that one. So we kind of have it written, but that would be an example of that. The way I wrote it, the chain of favors is not the best way to explain it. But yes, that's a good natural story that unfolds. A movie wouldn't exactly unfold that way, by the way. Like, you have less time on a TV, so you can have this couple unfoldings, and that's kind of all you really need, and it fills the time. You have your little like revelations, recontextualizations, because it is kind of a recontextualization when she's like he buys her to free her. You know, that could be like the end of the episode, and or if it's like a short story, like problem solved, but the problem escalates because she's like, yeah, I'm free, but um, you know, I'm going to save my boyfriend. You can come if you want or whatever. And then so he does help her. So it kind of escalates. If it was a movie, it would like you would have even more of these like table turning or escalations, twists of what would happen. Um, the Warrior Princess. This is Xena's first appearance, and the actress she appears in one previous in. It's the Penelope one with the centaur. She's in that episode, but not as Xena. I'm pretty sure she's just in it. Whatever, as an actress. So it's funny behind the scenes. Like they liked her. She did a good job. They bring her back. And at this point, I don't even know if they planned Xena to be recurring, other than she does escape. She doesn't die at the end, and she says like, "You haven't seen the last of me," and she gets off. But in this, she's like a good bad guy, but she's not the equivalent of what you think of when you think of Xena. Which, you know, Xena's kind of like Hercules, is what I think of her as. Like she helps people, but in this, she's manipulative and basically evil and murderous. But it was a good episode. Um, but Aiel is seduced by the cunning and cruel Xena, who aims to use him to destroy Hercules, leaving her free to take over the world. And so now I think we're in some ones that I haven't seen, maybe. Trying to unite a woman and her young baby with her prisoner husband, Hercules and Iolaus enter a slave prison where the inmates are forced to fight to the death in gladiatorial tournaments. Yeah. You know, the reuniting a woman with her baby and prisoner and husband, they do that plot in Yojimbo. In Yojimbo, it's like he's the badass who comes to town, who can literally kill anyone in the town. It's a town of warring gangs. So he sells his services to the highest bidder and works for both gangs and is making tons of money. And but what ends up screwing over his plan is he kind of finds out about that this woman is being kept a slave, and her husband and daughter are kind of being held as hostage to keep her as slave, which actually is the plot of Blue Velvet. So maybe we could write this down because there's multiple examples. Although I don't know if this exactly applies. But I bet if I watched it, I bet you would be kind of close to that. So what if we write this down? So we're saying, what do they call it if you are being held hostage? We need some, I think might call it collateral. So like, I'm going to write the semi-specific version, but husband slash and or son slash daughter are held hostage as collateral to keep a woman in servitude to a mob boss. Then like good guy figures this out and helps them. So that one, the thing about that is that can't exactly get like reapplied to like a million things, but that's just a great plot. Like that would work, and you could do it, and you wouldn't be like, people wouldn't be yelling, "So cliche! I've seen this a million times." They'd be like, "Shit! I haven't seen that since Blue Velvet. I love seeing another version of that plot." But I wonder if if you did a Simpsons version, you almost can't. If you did a Seinfeld or Friends version, you almost can't. Like, what if you changed everything? So what if like the collateral, so like uh bad guy has leverage slash collateral on, we'll say a woman, we'll still keep it a woman, but that could be changed too. Uh, to control her. Oh yeah, they call that like blackmail. Blackmail. Um, then that could almost be. It's funny, like if you're doing like a sitcom version of it, it would have to be much more trite, or and then it becomes funny almost. But like if it's like Elaine at work, one of her coworkers kind of gets blackmail on her, so he uses it so that she can never use the employee restroom and he can always use it, and so he always gets more access or something like that. And so she's so bummed about it. And then like a new guy at work finds out he's been blackmailing her to not let her use the employee restroom, and he waltzes in and as a hero and sets it straight or whatever. uh Blackmail. But that what's nice is this sort of holds a plot within it, because if you think what you need, you got your bad guy with leverage. If you like, even if you say bad guy with leverage or collateral, okay, who does he have the leverage or collateral on? That's one thing. Okay, what is he making them do that they don't want to do? That's another thing. And then how are you going to resolve all that? That's like the story. So it holds a ton of it. Leverage, collateral, what do we control her? Blackmail, blah 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 blah. We can get to the end of season 1. I think it ends at 13. Hercules with Iolaus are asked to investigate a ghost of a deceased soldier and wind up finding himself battling Gregus, Ares' dog of war. That, I'm sure there's some in there, but that doesn't reveal what it is. Any tropes. Oh, this one, this is the Xena plot. This is maybe spoilers. I almost don't want to read that because I might watch it. Oh yeah, and Xena teams up. It's a two-parter. Oh, I gotta watch that. Oh, yeah, that's money. Should I read it? No. Let's read one on season 2. Otto Autolycus commits robbery, but Iolaus is sentenced to death for the act. So Hercules must find the real culprit. Yeah. Yep. And you could do a Seinfeld version of that plot. Like, wrongfully accused, like George, like, who ate the pretzels or whatever, who double dipped the pretzels. That's not really the plot, but, and that he actually was the one, I think. But yeah, like someone double dipped the pretzels. They think it's George, so he's going to get fired, but he's like, I swear it wasn't me. It was this guy. We got to figure this out. Who was it? Um, yeah. It's kind of funny how, like, the slice of life version is literally just like these kind of intense genre plots, but making them trite as fuck. And then they, like, become hilarious. I wonder if that's one of the secrets to Seinfeld. They like do genre plots. I would want to look at, maybe we gotta look at Seinfeld eps next. We're building this little Bible of tropes, uh, playing both sides against each other. See, that could be kind of like a trope or whatever. No good deed goes unpunished. Prison break-in. Yeah, prison break-in. Um, that should go on. That should get written down because that totally breaking in instead of breaking out. It's fascinating. We're not breaking out. We're breaking in. Okay, let me see here. I want to read one more episode. Hercules and Salmoneus visit King Midas' gambling palace, only to find that it has got out of control with sadistic entertainment after it was taken over by Villainous and her henchmen. That sounds awesome. I want to watch it. But are there any tropes there? Visiting a gambling palace. Um, what would we? There is something kind of like if you say we might have written something like this, but if you say like it's like restoring, like a restoration, uh, a like morally fallen place to its what's the like to its legit past or whatever, to its like divine past, whatever. You guys know what I mean. Um, that like the lands are fallen and dark, all the trees are dying, the land is always foggy, monsters everywhere. That you could almost, if that's like lift the curse, I don't know, but yeah, the restoration. But even like if it's a one word, if you say restoration, I might have one page of the inspirational notebook. It will be one word inspiration, and it won't explain anything. And then some of it will come up later, like the restoration we explain here. But like, yeah, restoration is a good word. It has a lot with it. That it implies a lot of things. It implies two states, but what it used to be, what it is now, then why is it fallen? How is it fallen? That's almost like the story is like already kind of in all that. But the Hercules thing, having it be it's like a gambling palace, that sounds fun. I have that kind of in Percival. There's only two kind of kingdoms, and there's one more south, and then one super far south in season one of Percival. But kind of the middle kingdom is kind of the one. It's like they call it the Merchant King, and what's his name? I forget his name, but so he's the peacekeeper. He's what do you call it too if you're neutral? So they're very neutral because they make the most money that way. They're trade based, merchant based. That's like his personality goes into all that. And then oh, it's flashing. I might robot and it might end, guys. I think fading out here. But then above that, what I want to do is make borderline the fallen trope, but just I think they call that the cannibal kingdom, but they would only call that in certain circles. You know what I mean? Like it wouldn't, and I don't even know if he'd go in and like, it's not like everyone's eating people. It's just like it's a little bit off. Like the king is kind of a bad guy, and yeah, they don't. It's not yeah, because that's part of the thing with Percival is like, um, it's I want it to be a little bit of that double negative kind of thing, a little bit of the like I don't know if you'd call it more nuanced because saying nuance is a little cheesy, but yeah, but just this idea like it actually is kind of funny and sounds better to me like if there's a kingdom called the Cannibal Kingdom that you hear like homeless people calling it that, mocking it, and then you actually go there and you can't find anyone eating anyone, like that's way better than if you go there and then everyone is just eating everyone. That's like stupid kind of. And it's actually creepier kind of the other way because you're like wondering. Um, so a lot of that in Percival is like that. I like a lot of my first drafts. I'm just pulling back to be not as on the nose or something. Get some of the double negative stuff. I'm saying double negative, but getting some of like how each thought or each idea kind of contains a little bit of its opposite too. Um, yeah. Return home, but the guys took over. Walking tall, totally. That's a great one. That's a great trope. Laverne and Shirley that involve breaking in. Yeah. There's a Seinfeld episode where they have to break in and do a little switcheroo heist thing too. That's funny. We might be a little onto something with that Seinfeld idea. Man, it's funny if you like. I don't. Maybe other people. I'm sure you could probably click on a YouTube video and they might say that. So maybe it's not even super deep to make that revelation. But to me, knowing that, I feel like I could write a Seinfeld episode now. Like literally, all you do is translate a genre plot into these funny characters doing the exact same thing, but way more trite. and then you would have a hilarious whatever. Which you wouldn't think that at first that that's what Seinfeld does. I don't know. Their reputation is they say the show about nothing, but it could they could say like if it's the show about these like genre fiction style plots, but we make them basically about nothing. Like we make them so trite that they don't matter. Like that, you could say like the show that doesn't ultimately matter. And that is like Jerry. Jerry at the end of episodes, he's like, huh? He just shrugs. Um, yeah. Okay. So kind of wrapping up. There's like I feel you. This is the thing. Like I do this once every couple months, looking at plots, translating them, adding potential tropes to the inspirational book. I gotta organize the inspirational pocket book. It's like a big step I gotta do at some point. And I can kind of release it. It's not like it needs to be. It's not like it needs every trope ever or whatever. And if you do that, it might be too long anyway. But I just want it to be like 64 to 100 pages of like lists, like not even writing necessarily. And you're flipping it, you're opening it, you're looking at it, you're reading at some stuff. Um, and yeah, I did that once with Brendan Swan when he wrote Scarlet Magic for me, which is like a really amazing script, and I love it. But he told me he's like, this was a few years ago, and I did have an early version of the inspirational pocketbook, and he says, send me some tropes to include, and I'll just write a story around it. He's like, I've been wanting to do that as a writing exercise anyway. So I was like, oh, brother, you don't even know how prepared I am for this. So I went over and I found the best tropes that all were super rich and contained multitudes of contexts and plots within them. And I sent him like five of those. And then, yeah, he wrote an amazing story that included those. So that was a really fun. And he wrote it all. Like it's all him, but a little pat myself on the back because I sent him, I was ready with an awesome list of tropes and I sent them to him and it helped it like literally inspired him, like, so it kind of worked. I might include that in like a little sales pitch of the book if I ever put it for sale or whatever. So yeah, what it got, uh, I'm kind of just working on stuff. Cerberus will probably be the next campaign in like May, and that'll be a huge one for me, and I hope it's huge for everyone else too. But it's like that completes the Cerberus story. That one's going to be like just probably my biggest campaign of the year is what I need it to be or hope it to be or want it to be. So I'll start like hyping it up as we go, as we get close to it. But yeah, Cerberus, it's going to be great. I'm so excited. It's done, like the art's done. It'll be getting lettered soon. Um, and yeah, that one is awesome. And so everyone can kind of look forward to that. But I'm wondering in the back of my head, like, could I even include the inspirational pocketbook in that campaign? And that would kind of light a fire under my butt to finish it and organize it. And maybe I will do that. But the only thing is, these are a little bit harder to find print, to like get print, well, I don't know what you call it, like print versions of. Like for interactivity, I actually use Amazon on demand, and that works really well for it. But yeah, setting that up was actually a little bit of a pain. I had to order multiple copies to get it just how I wanted it and stuff. But so I'm like, will it be like that again? I need to do that process first before I put it for sale. And it's like, yeah, I have all these things written, but yeah, organizing them. I'm like, if I just took one day and spent the whole day, maybe I could do it. But that's weird. And I'm like, I got other shit to do too. Today, every day is kind of like the process of deciding what to work on is a little bit hard too. And I try to decide the night before I make a list, and then I kind of wake up and I'm like, God, do I really feel like sticking to that? And I don't want to lose time accidentally thinking about what to work on instead of working. But right now, I got like 5 things that kind of need to be done. Um, One way to do that is the closest thing that's to being done. Kind of work on that a lot because then you can finish it and check it off. And so for that actually is issue 1 of Gold West with Matt Krotz is going kind of in this process of a final polish, which is very like hands-on or in depth, but at the same time it's like it doesn't take that long. So, and that's turning out great. That's a lot of fun. That'll be a cool book too. But I think that one might be 64 pages, the first third of the story, up to a really good like turning point. Like it would be a point where the recontextualization happens, and you would, if it was a TV show, you would cut to commercial kind of thing, or the end of an episode. Even it could be like that, but it's a little bit of a cliffhanger. I know people have mixed emotions on cliffhangers. It kind of depends on, with crowdfunding, especially, but it kind of depends on like how satisfying was that first chunk. And I've had, if you rate on 1 to 10, I've had lower and higher where it's working real good, or it could work better kind of thing. One of the ones people were like, there were some criticisms that Cerberus, the cliffhanger, was too abrupt. And I'm like, you know what I did? I literally cut it in half at the turning point, that kind of the big unfolding moment, and then it ends. So it works in that regard, and the reviews kind of say that too. But the fact that there is no extra pomp and circumstance because it's been separated like that, so it is abrupt. So they're right when they say that. And if I did it again, I would almost like be like, okay, if there was a version where you read from beginning to end, I might not include like a page or two, but I'm going to add a page or two just to let this ending wind down and really sit with the suspense that it's building. And we actually did that in Hotel Story. Same thing, because we got from the editor actually said, like, this ending is not satisfying for this midway point. And so we added some stuff from the beginning of part 2 that really answered some questions. And then getting these questions answered in part 1 does really help it feel satisfying. So anyway, that's some of the stuff you're thinking about when you're like releasing these books or whatever. Gotta market to the furries for Cerberus. I'm not even kidding. I think that might help with a few sales. I'm not sure. Michael Dichet. I love the babysitter. Big setup of the nerdy little boy and the adult babysitter helping his confidence. Then they flash plot twist on screen and it becomes a horror story. Dude, I don't know if I've seen that. I can't remember. Maybe I need to rewatch it, that sounds great. And I think I have seen it. I just can't remember it that well. But yeah, that's fun. That's a good one. Yeah. Yeah, but it's fun looking at like these kind of well-told stories and just trying to break down what they're doing trope-wise. Like if you could write it more broadly what they're doing, then can we do that too? Can we use that? And then some of what's happening when I'm writing is like, and this is where I get nervous. I'm like, maybe I feel like this skill would decline over time, or maybe like you're trying to build that like encyclopedic knowledge of tropes in your head that you can pull from, because you're trying to pull apt tropes, and you can cycle through in your head like, no, that doesn't work. No, that doesn't work. No, and you'll stumble on some too. That's the other thing. Like I wish I could think of an example. I had a pretty darn good example in the past like few weeks even, where you're writing and all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, like all I need is for like this one thing to go wrong instead of right, that I was planning on it just being a normal thing to go right, and instead it goes wrong, and then that totally opens up the story to be like pretty awesome. I think actually maybe the one I'm kind of thinking of, not the best example of that, but the most recent, it was in Percival. Let's see if I can explain it fast. But it's Percival escaping with the girl who's kind of special or whatever. So he's escaping with her. He's kind of been working with people who've been working with the girl. So he's kind of betraying them by sneaking out with the girl. And so I kind of knew like the episode's going to end when he escapes with the girl. And then the next episode is going to wrap up like his story with the girl, kind of helping her get to where she needs to go, whatever. The people he betrayed are in pursuit, blah, 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 blah. And so I was kind of doing that, and I was not totally feeling it. I was like, what's going on here? What's wrong? I don't know. And I was like, okay, I just need to write it. Like, I need to think this through. So it's like you zone in or zoom in or whatever. So one thing I wrote is like, all right, first off, how do they even escape, you know? So I was like, okay, it's a big castle. It's the middle of the night that they're trying to escape. So one of the things that they kind of run into is they run into the castle's bakery, and the bakery's open because they're baking for the next day's bread. So there's kind of a scene with them in the bakery, but nobody knows that they're trying to escape. So you can actually kind of walk through the bakery, and yeah, people aren't gonna stop. Aren't gonna be like halt and like fight you, but they're gonna look at you and kind of wonder if they get questioned later. They're gonna be like, yeah, they walked by. It was weird. So they go through the bakery, and then they kind of get out. There's guards, uh, like around, so it's not like they can just like run away. So my plan, I was still writing. You're kind of writing straight ahead. I'm like, okay, they kind of come out near the bakery, kind of under a bridge, and um, Percival then says, "Wait here. I'm going to go get my horse because I can't go with you to get my horse because people will get caught right away or whatever." So he has to leave the girl, and he doesn't even know like exactly how much she trusts him either, you know. But so then he goes to get his horse, and he's coming back to get the girl. And as he's coming back to get the girl, the main other dude who's like up to this point was sort of his friend, but the dude who he's betraying right now to escape with the girl shows up on his horse and starts talking to him. And they're walking towards where the girl is hiding. And so so I wrote to that point, and then I was like, okay, this changes everything, which is always a good point to be at. So I'm like, okay, what's the new plot? Like, Percival is not going to escape with the girl. They're going to be forced to escape individually, and then we're going to start the next issue with them apart. And maybe they'll meet up, maybe they'll find each other, but they both will have their own little adventure of what's going to happen. But yeah, so uh, and that moment would have like a lot of context behind it because they're trotting over the bridge that the girl is supposedly hiding under, but we haven't checked in with her. We don't know, if she's down there or what. But yeah, so it's like stumbling upon that, kind of having that feeling in your head, like, oh, this changes everything. That's always a good feeling. Kind of rolling with it, but it's kind of a state of being more screwed than less screwed. Like Percival, his plan is not working right now, So it's even better for what portends for the next episode or whatever. So yeah. Um, all right. Okay, man, kind of a long stream, but I think uh, I'm just gonna kind of get out of here, everyone. But yeah, thanks for hanging out, everyone. Shooting the shit. It's fun doing these kind of weird writing based streams. We're just going over tropes and stuff, but it's a good, fun skill to have and apply and try and build up that Bible. I call it the Bible, but I picture that for like Simpsons or whatever. Like somewhere they actually have a literal Bible, and they open it, flip through it, and get ideas for episodes. And I'm like, we could have that. I could build that and sell it to you guys for not even that much. Like it'll be a pocketbook. I don't know, $10. After this, hop over to Zaid Comics for the Hardline. Geekazu, inspirational. Yes, thanks, Geek. Dele, yeah, I'll come say hi or whatever. I'll see what's up. At 7:30, I don't know what time it is. Oh shit, it's almost 7:30. Dude, I streamed for so long. The Lakers play, and I'm obsessed with Luka Doncic, but it's a game that isn't on TV. So actually, I literally will. There's live streams where people just kind of do the radio thing where they watch it and then they give you the play-by-play like a radio, old school radio. And I do that, and I'll draw maybe or whatever, and I just listen to that. Because I'm actually watching every single game that Luka is playing since he got traded to the Lakers. I do have a problem, and it's not even helping that much. Like, I'm like, can this be research for storytelling? Not really. Although I do want to do a little short story about basketball. I have a funny idea. But whatever. I'll talk to you guys later about that. But yeah. Okay. All right. I'll see you guys later. Everyone have a good evening. Thanks for hanging out. Peace.